I bet you didn't know that a secret fire technique saved thousands of WWII soldiers' lives, often in the deadliest, coldest conditions imaginable. In World War II, fire was never just about warmth or cooking. Fire was exposure. Fire was risk. Fire was life balanced against death. A single flare of light in the wrong place could give away a patrol, compromise a hide site, or, draw artillery fire within seconds. Soldiers operating behind enemy lines, resistance fighters, downed airmen, and reconnaissance units all faced the same brutal reality. Matches ran out, lighters froze, leaked, or failed in rain and snow. Flint and steel produced sparks that could be seen from, frightening distances at night. And when resupply was impossible, improvisation wasn't optional. It was survival. Want to learn more hidden survival secrets from history? Make sure to subscribe and stay updated for more videos every week. What most people don't realize is that World War II training forced soldiers to rethink fire completely. Instead of focusing on sparks and flames, they focused on heat itself. One of the quietest and most reliable methods involved something most modern survival guides barely mention at all. A heated stone. Not folklore. Not primitive guessing. A deliberate, controlled technique rooted in physics, patience, and battlefield discipline. And when everything else failed, it worked. If you value real survival knowledge drawn from hard history, take a moment to like this video. Share it with fellow history enthusiasts. Leave a comment with your thoughts and subscribe to Warcraft Survival for more content like this. Now, let's get straight into the method soldiers trusted when fire had to stay invisible. The battlefield punished convenience. Matches degraded quickly in damp conditions and became unreliable after weeks in the field. Even waterproof versions failed after repeated exposure to moisture. Lighters depended on fuel that evaporated or thickened in cold climates, especially during winter campaigns in Europe and the Soviet Union. Flint and steel required repeated striking, movement and visible sparks, all of which increased the risk of detection. As operations stretched on and, supply lines broke down, soldiers were trained to prioritize methods that relied on preparation instead of speed. Fire had to be predictable, controllable, and, silent until the very last moment. This is where heat retention became more valuable than ignition sparks. How the hot stone method actually worked was honestly a bit different than most would expect. Stone behaves differently from metal. Certain stones absorb heat slowly and release it slowly as well. This thermal mass allowed soldiers to store usable heat without flame. Once heated thoroughly, a stone could remain hot long after a fire was extinguished. Instead of creating fire with sparks, the stone itself became the ignition source. Veteran accounts and field training references describe placing a heated stone directly into prepared tinder. The sustained heat caused the tinder to smoulder rather than burst into flame. Smoke appeared first, followed by a glowing ember. With controlled airflow, fire could then be brought to life quietly and deliberately. Not every stone could be used. Soldiers learned quickly that wet, layered or river-smooth stones were dangerous. Trapped moisture could cause stones to crack or even explode when heated. Dense, dry stones, such as granite, basalt and slate, were preferred because, well, they heated evenly and remained structurally stable. Selection wasn't rushed. Stones were warmed gradually to test their integrity. A stone that cracked under slow heat was discarded immediately. This patience prevented injuries and ensured reliability later, when the method truly mattered. Heating the stone was never done as a separate activity. Soldiers used existing heat sources that were already justified, such as cooking fires or controlled warming fires. Stones were placed near embers, partially buried in ash, or positioned at the edge of heat, rather than directly in flames. Once heated, the stone was removed using cloth wood, or, whatever improvised tools were at hand, and then stored carefully to preserve its heat. Dry soil, ash, or wrapped fabric acted as insulation, keeping the warmth in. In many cases, stones were prepared hours in advance, so they would be ready right when ignition was required. Tinder preparation really made or broke the method. The hot stone technique depended entirely on the quality of the tinder. Soldiers carried or gathered materials that responded well to sustained heat, rather than just sparks. Charred cloth, dried fungus, grass fibres, wood shavings, and processed fibres were all commonly used. Tinder was arranged to balance airflow and heat retention, which was, well, absolutely crucial for success. When the heated stone was placed directly against or even partially inside the tinder, it transferred steady heat instead of those brief flashes you might expect. Smouldering began quietly, almost unnoticed at first. With slow, controlled airflow, the ember grew without sudden light or sound, allowing for a careful and measured ignition. So, why did heat beat sparks in combat conditions? Well, sparks deliver these momentary temperature spikes, right? If your tinder is even just a bit damp or not quite prepared, sparks fail instantly. Sustained heat, on the other hand, does not. The hot stone method actually allowed imperfect materials to ignite over time. It was a technique that rewarded preparation, discipline, and a real understanding of the process, rather than just speed. This, aligned perfectly with World War II survival doctrine, where mistakes were often fatal and patience was in fact a tactical skill. In concealment scenarios, soldiers used this method inside shallow pits, behind terrain features, or even within ruined structures. Fire could be nurtured slowly and shielded from view. There was no sudden flare to compromise position. The fire, really, appeared only when it was already controlled. So, applying the method today, this technique, still remains practical for modern survivalists. First, select a dense, dry stone and heat it slowly near an existing fire. Then, preserve its heat using ash, soil, or even a cloth. Make sure to prepare high-quality tinder in advance. When ignition is needed, just place the stone against the tinder and wait patiently. Finally, introduce air gradually and deliberately. It's all about patience and care. This is not a fast method. It was never meant to be. It is a reliable one. What this method reveals about wartime survival is, well, quite profound. The hot stone fire method shows how World War II survival training stripped problems down to fundamentals. Fire is not created by tools. Fire is sustained by heat, oxygen, and fuel. Understanding mattered more than equipment. Preparation mattered more than convenience. Why this knowledge still belongs on Warcraft Survival is honestly pretty clear. Modern tools fail. Batteries die. Fuel runs out. The hot stone method teaches patience, respect for materials, and control under pressure. These lessons remain valuable anywhere reliability matters more than speed. If you believe real survival knowledge is built on understanding, not shortcuts, subscribe to Warcraft Survival and share this episode with others who value practical history. The past still holds methods worth keeping alive.